tell me, as we sit here, Mike, what's the situation as you see it, first of all, in Ukraine?
Well, I can't remember what we talked about last time we spoke, but the planting season has finished, and broadly the hectares are about 20% down on what we would normally expect. So corn, sunflower, soybeans are down about 20%, which I think is quite remarkable that they've achieved that much. They managed to plant that much considering the circumstances. The winter wheat we've talked about before, that was planted last fall, and that was 6.5 million hectares, which was the normal sort of amount of wheat that's normally planted in Ukraine. So overall, at this moment in time, the crop is broadly there in terms of planted hectares. The next thing we need to look at now is the state of harvest and how much of that is going to be harvested, and that's the unknown question, I suppose, because that will rely on things like diesel, availability of diesel, which I think at the moment is available. Staff, people to actually drive combines, and how safe it is for those combines to operate. Wheat harvest is about to start. It hasn't already started this week. It's imminent. And that'll give us some indication of how well the harvest is likely to progress as we move through the season. So, in terms of farming, all things considered, it's not that bad.
So then, what about transportation? We talked about it last time, but since then, we continue to hear what's going on. One side says this, the other side says this. There was crop in the bins, so to speak, on farms, and there was crop in the bins in the export terminals, right? So where are we at with that?
Well, when hostilities broke out at the end of February, there was about an estimated 19, 20 million tonnes of grain in the supply chain that was going to be filtered through and would have been exported between the end of February and now the start of the new harvest. So that's still sitting in place. I think about 1 million, 2 million tonnes have been exported through alternative routes. So there is a supply chain issue in terms of the grain in the supply chain, and we're now about to see the new crop wheat come in, which will obviously need storage. Storage primarily. Generally doesn't need drying. It's generally quite dry in harvest in Ukraine. But in terms of transport, that needs to start to filter out of Ukraine to free up space for the next crop to come in behind it. So at the moment, that's not really happening. I think I mentioned to you before, typically 5 million tonnes of grain and agricultural products will be exported out of Odessa and Mykolaiv, the two main ports on the Black Sea. Those ports have been blockaded, and nothing has been exported through those routes. So traders and farmers and everybody else has been looking for alternative routes out of Ukraine. They can go overland by rail car, overland by lorry, or towards the port in Romania, Constanta. But the amount that can be exported through those routes is, it's less than 20% of what needs to be exported, and therein lies the problem. The only real solution to grain exports out of Ukraine is through the Black Sea, and specifically through Odessa and Mykolaiv ports.
I mean, we've heard from India where they've curtailed exports. Egypt said you can't export any wheat or whatever, all in kind of because of what's going on in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, back to what I said before about the fact that the planting hectares are 20% down, which obviously is a significant drop, but the crop, is technically is there. So we've now got down to a situation where it becomes political. The crop is there. I mean, there will be logistic issues in terms of damage to infrastructure in Ukraine, and there has been some damage at the ports. But once that is fixed, it's just a political issue to get that grain out of Ukraine to where it needs to be. And 2 weeks ago there was talks in Turkey between Ukraine and Russia and Turkey, with Turkey looking to broker some sort of guarantee that would allow grain to be exported. But I think we're a long way off finding a political resolution that is suitable specifically to Ukraine, but to all parties concerned. But it's a political issue rather than a supply chain issue.
Okay, that's awesome. Tell me in a nutshell the services that you and your company provide.
Oh, right. Well, the core part of our business is crop forecasting. So, in a normal season, which we haven't had for 3 years with COVID and various other issues, but in a normal season, we would spend time in primarily in Russia and Ukraine. We've got guys that work for us, and we go crop scouting, and we get a feel for the crop condition, mainly wheat and corn, but also sunflower and soya and other niche crops for specific clients. And what we do is we try and create a forecast based on what we actually see in the field. So we spend a lot of time in the field looking at crops and corroborating weather data, NDVI data, and what's being said officially and unofficially and so on. We've got farmers that we talk to and other people. And we collate all that information and try and put a crop forecast on it. But at the same time, we also supply information on sort of up-to-date agribusiness news in Ukraine and Russia, in the Black Sea in general, but focusing on Ukraine and Russia. We do weather data, weather updates, crop planting, harvest progress and updates, and provide a sort of a one-stop supply of data coming on a regular basis. And we focus on producing short reports, one-page reports sent out on a regular basis to keep people up to date and up to speed with sorts of the key issues. And that's our core business, but we also provide consultancy. We were providing support for potential investors and people interested in farming in the Black Sea. Obviously, that's been put on hold for now. But we were also doing auditing, investment investigations for potential investors. Tourism was a big part of what we were starting to get into. But we do any consultancy work specifically focusing on the Black Sea regions.